Welcome to Never Again Is Now, a podcast about anti-Semitism. I am Evelyn Marcus, and in addition to being a psychologist, I am featured in the documentary about anti-Semitism, Never Again Is Now. I am a Dutch Jew and the daughter of Holocaust survivors. In 2006, I immigrated to the United States because of the rising anti-Semitism in Europe.
I am Phyllis Zimbler Miller, the founder of the nonfiction Holocaust theater project, Thin Edge of the Wedge. I was born in a small town. I was born in Chicago, grew up in a small town in the Midwest. My grandparents had immigrated to the United States from Latvia and Russia at the turn of the 20th century. And my US Army officer husband and I were stationed in Munich, Germany, only 25 years after the end of World War II. I am thrilled to be the one to get to introduce award-winning international film director, Ruggero Gabbai, who has directed over 25 documentaries on a wide range of subjects, including the Holocaust. I've watched two of his compelling documentaries on High Flicks, The Longest Journey, about the Nazi deportation of the Italian Jews of Rhodes to Auschwitz, and The Raid, about the Nazis' roundup of Italian Jews in Rome on October 16, 1943. Now, before we continue, we would just like our guest to say a few words about its background.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me on your program. I'm Ruggero Gabbai, or Roger Gabbai for the Americans. And I was born in Antwerp in Belgium, but from a Sephardic Spanish Jewish family. And my family moved to Milan when I was only 6 months old. So I grew up in Italy. Then I spent some time in Israel in a kibbutz. And then finally, I came to the States where I studied in Rochester. No, first in Georgetown, I studied English. We had the classical studies in Italy where you study Latin and ancient Greek, but no English. And then so I studied 1 year in Georgetown. Then I went to do my BFA in photography at Rochester, upstate New York. And then I did my master at Columbia University and was a master in film directing. Then I stayed in the States. I worked a little bit in the States until 1994. I guess my idiosyncrasies with the American culture were greater than I thought in terms of expressing my work. And I came back here in Italy in 1995, and I started my career. And I have to say that my career was really launched by the project that the CEDEC in Milan, which is a center for Jewish research, decided to produce Memoria, which is my first feature documentary, actually my second feature documentary. And Memoria was about really the last Italian survivor from Auschwitz. We went there in Poland, we came back to Poland with the survivors. They were very generous, very precise in their testimony. And I have to say that this movie really was viewed on prime time by more than 7 million Italians, which is 1 out of 6 Italians watched the movie. And from then on, also Roberto Benigni from La Vita Bella, Life is Beautiful, called us. We cooperate with him. Since then, because in a way, Primo Levi died prematurely, and the baton, really, the testimony was left to the last survivors that we had the luck and the honor to interview. So this movie was really a turning point in Italian culture and a turning point in Jewish culture as well in Italy.
I tried to find it last night online. Is there any place, does it have subtitles in English? And is there any place now that we can
I can send you the link, no problem with English subtitles. Otherwise, I know that in the CEDEC, which is CDEC, they have it online in their website. And probably there is also a version on YouTube, but the safest way to go is to ask me directly the link.
Okay, and I will put it underneath the podcast in the comments. Okay, so before we talk about anti-Semitism today, just want to talk briefly about anti-Semitism in Italy during World War II. Because as your documentary, The Raid, shows, and as I actually have a firsthand testimony in my play, Thin Edge of the Wedge, and that infamous day in October when the Jews of Rome had absolutely no warning, and then the roundup began, ordinary Italians and both nuns and priests took in Jews at the last moment. It's a much different picture of anti-Semitism, especially from a Catholic country. So could you just talk briefly about how Jews in Italy at that time looked, excuse me, how Italians looked at Jews?
It's a very good question, also very complex question that doesn't have only one answer. My take on it is that, we say Italians brava gente. Brava gente means good people in Italians. So we have this myth in Italy that Italian people really help the Jews. But the matter of fact, if we look at the sheer numbers, 1 out of 4 Jews were deported, which is the same number as in Holland. And the greatest raffle was really in Rome. And in Rome, as you mentioned, October 16, 1943, was something that was done not by the Italians, thank
Yes,
God,
I should have
but
said
only
that.
by the Nazi. Why I say thank God? Because the Italians knew where the Jews were living, where the Roman Jews were living. They knew them. They were also friends with them. Even the fascist police knew everything about the Jewish community in Rome. So the fact that were only the German that went to do roundup and to look for the Jews was a lucky accident, because in a way they were able to capture more than 2,000 Jews, but not the entire community. And this was, but I have to say that it's true that in our documentary we show there is one nun. She's very old, and she was so gracious to give us this interview, because she really said, we knew what was going on with the Germans that occupied Rome, and we knew that the Jews were going to be killed and deported. So we had to do it as Christians. We had to open the door of our convent, and many convents did it. But we have to say, on the other hand, that the Jews were deported, 1 mile away from the Vatican, from Vatican City, and the Pope also knew what was going on, and he didn't do anything to help the Jews.
Yes, okay, that would be a whole nother topic, which is a very important topic, but not for this particular interview. So I have one more quick question before Evelyn talks about anti-Semitism. Is there mandatory Holocaust education in Italy today? No,
Okay, it's not mandatory, but it's so embedded into Italian culture, because Primo Levi is one of the most read author in school. And also I have to say, Memoria, my film, it was shown in, I think, in every middle high school in Italy. But it's not mandatory, but it's part of the curriculum, because it's part of the history curriculum, because when you study fascism, of course, you also study the deportation of the Jews and everything. And I have to say, Italian education system is very sensitive to the topic, and they always ask for help. And there is a very good communication between the Jewish, let's say, communities and the education minister. And there is always a good interchange of ideas, and they try to build a curriculum. It's not mandatory, but it's like if it were, because in a way, all Italian students, they know about the Holocaust, and they study the deportation of the Jews.
Okay, so now it's Evelyn's turn.
So, Ruggero, first of all, it's a great honor to have you on the show. You made so many important documentaries about, aggression against Jews, violence against Jews, killing of Jews, not only during World War II, but also about Jews living in Libya, Jews living in Egypt, who had to endure after the Second World War a lot of violence, right? Mm-hmm. I have a question about anti-Semitism now, recent anti-Semitism. We here in the United States saw a surge of anti-Semitism during the Israel-Gaza conflict. I know that was the case globally. Have you recently experienced any anti-Semitism?
Okay. Again, strange and complex countries. We have the neighborhood France that has many problems of anti-Semitism. I mean, French anti-Semitism. I wouldn't say Muslim anti-Semitism, which goes by. It's easy to imagine that they have a very large Muslim population. So they have largest problem. I'm doing now a documentary on the Tunisian Jews, and the producers are French so I go to Paris very often, and it's a different ballgame. In Italy, thank God, there is anti-Semitism, but it's much lower than in France. There is anti-Semitism like in any countries, but I would say here in Europe is one of the countries that is more tolerant, where Jews live their Jewishness in a very open fashion. And of course, traditionally, the anti-fascist parties, which is the left, which was a great communist party, socialist party, and socialist democratic party, they were always, against fascism, against totalitarianism, and in a way, in a natural way, I'm talking about the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, in a natural way, they supported the Jews and they supported Israel. Then everything changed after, let's say, the Yom Kippur War in '73. Something started to change because the PLO was very strong in their propaganda machine. They were very able to get most of the, let's say, of the left traditional party. They were supportive to the Jews. They were really able to turn around. So now what is very painful for me, because I still consider myself a leftist or a liberal, call it whatever you want, an anti-fascist for sure. It's strange for me because sometimes Israel is defended by these new fascist parties, or let's say fascist, maybe it's a big word, but it's defended by right-wing parties that maybe they are very, very much against the racist, against the Muslim people, they are racist against the gypsies, but they like the Jews, they like Israel because they have a strong arm against the Arab population. So for me, it's a difficult question because I think that I always, I don't like ideologies, but I like ideas, which is something different. And my ideas are liberal ideas, and liberal ideas that were born with the anti-fascist after Second World War. So everything now has changed. But I have to say that thank God, Italy, it's a very tolerant country, and Jews, because we are very little, so we don't have an important weight. We have a cultural weight, but we don't have a political weight because we are too few people. We are 35,000 in entire Italy. So it's nothing. It's a neighborhood. It's a street in New York City. Nevertheless, the Italians are very fascinated by the Jews, by the Jewish culture, and the Jewish culture is very embedded into Italian culture because many Italian people really helped to make advance this country, and also because many people from Spain, like myself, came to Italy, so there is a big connection. The Roman community is the oldest community in almost one of the oldest community in the world. If you have to make an anthropological research on the who is a Roman, I'm not talking about a Jew, but who is a Roman to Kur, you would go to the Jewish community in Rome because they're more Roman than the real Roman because they're there since the time of Julius Caesar.
So if I understand you well, Ruggero, there was in the past few months when the conflict flared up between Gaza and Israel, we saw anti-Semitism rise in the world, in the sense that it was that Jews were attacked violently or physically or verbally, in the sense that Israel was demonized with classic ways of demonizing Jews. So that was not what you have seen.
We have seen there was like a rally in downtown Milan where they screamed for the first time. There were Arab people screamed death to Jews, and this was a big scandal. All the newspapers talk about it, and also our mayor in Milan condemned these sentences, but were only vocal and verbal. I have to say that nothing bad happened. There was no violence. There was no particularly anti-Semitism in the street, not at all. First of all, the conflict was very short, thank God. And this probably helped. We had other conflict in the past in Gaza that was much worse. But of course, we know that certain anti-Semitic people they cover their anti-Semitism by being against Israel, by being against the state, the real essence of the presence of the Israeli state in the Middle East. Nevertheless, I'm not too preoccupied. I think we always have to stay alert and we have to be careful. But also, I think that sometimes Jews, I'm talking also for myself, we concentrate too many times and too often to things that are really bad and people that hate us, as if it were a way of building our identity. I believe that now I shift this kind of psychological mentality because I would like to concentrate on the majority of the people who liked the state of Israel, who liked the Jews, and who are fascinated by the Jewish culture and what has brought in a popular culture all over the Western world.
So that's interesting. When when Arabs chanted "Kill the Jews, kill all the Jews" in my country, Holland, and that was in 2013. Then the mayor said that's freedom of speech, and your mayor said this is not allowed. You know, we don't want this. That's a good example, I think, of Rome. Also, do you have do you have seen people speaking up against anti-Semitism?
Yeah, very much so, very much so. Especially with the pandemic, something strange happened because the people, general people, saw that in the news Israel was doing a lot for the anti-COVID with the vaccination. They were the first one, was an example. And I think this one was very, very important because people realize that it's a serious country, that are people that are devoted to the well-being of their citizen. And many people started to praise Israel. And this one was a very good, let's say, media impact in Italy. So I have to say, I really pray. I'm not denying there is an anti-Semitism. There will always be, because an anti-Semite, I wouldn't say that he's born like this, but of course not. But it's almost impossible. It's atavic. It's something very atavic, very profound, and it's always going to stay. But I think one way to go against anti-Semitism is really to concentrate on so many people that really like us, like the way we live, the way we think, and the way we do things. And of course, nobody is perfect. Israel is far from being perfect. But there is one thing to criticize the government of Israel, and there is another thing to deny the existence and the right to exist of Israel.
So, if I understand you well, Ruggero, you're saying, you know, for our own sanity as Jews, let's concentrate on the positive things in our own community and around us, and the people who positively relate to us. And you're saying that's also, are you also saying that's at the same time a good strategy against rising anti-Semitism?
I think it is, because it's a way of also to show that you don't have a victim mentality, because sometimes the anti-Semite says, oh, you always victimize yourself, you always talk about the Holocaust. And I can say that because I devoted this part of my career in doing things about to combat anti-Semitism, or at least to show the history of what happened to the Jewish people. So I think I have the right to say that now it's time really to shift psychologically, to have another take, another mental take, and try really to be positive, because there are the majority, I wouldn't say in Europe, but in Italy for sure, the majority of people are totally in favor of a Jewish state. They like being, okay, I live in Milan, which is a big city, and it's socially and economically well developed. But I have to say that the anti-Semitism that I feel if I go to France, which is there is a real physical danger. The anti-Semitism that I experience in Austria, in Sweden, for example, I don't have it here. We don't have it, and it's also part of the Italian culture. And Jews in Italy are very well integrated. I wouldn't say assimilated, but very well blended. They don't speak with an accent. They look like Italians. they think like Italians and have their Jewish part. So it's also a matter of maybe of, if we want to generalize, being Sephardic and Mediterranean towards being Ashkenazi from the Eastern Europe, which there is a different load, there is a different load of baggage, there are different
Okay.
take.
Are the Jews are the Italian Jews mostly Sephardic?
In Milan, we have a mostly Sephardic community where we have Jews from Lebanon, from Egypt, from Iran, and there are also some Italian Jews. And Italian Jews are mostly Sephardic, especially the ones from Rome, as I said, they are Sephardic, but there are also some Ashkenazi Italian Jews. So it's a mix. It's a mixture. By Milan, we are mostly Sephardic, yes.
It's an interesting thing that um, in Italy there seems to be, in general, a positive attitude of Italians towards Jewish culture and Israel. You say also because they're very well integrated. They live there for a very long time. They're integrated in the culture. In Holland, where I am originally from, Jews lived there for hundreds of years, since the 1400s, and yet there is a very negative attitude towards Israel, and people don't know anything about Judaism. They just don't know anything about it. It's you cannot say it's integrated in Dutch culture because people just don't know about Judaism, what it is. So that's very different, and I find that very interesting that this difference exists into European countries.
For example, I'm a very good friend of Achinoam Mini, the Noah, the singer, and she's cherished here like a star. I mean, every year she comes here to do her concert. Also, I have to say the three big Israeli writers are like stars in Italy. When they come for a book sale or a book, I mean, they fill up the auditoriums, and they're really fed like, Grossman, Amos Oz when he was alive, Aleph Bet Yoshua, even Nevo, Eshkol Nevo. I mean, these are people that are so red, and when they come to Italy to the fair, to the book fair, they are like movie stars, really. It's
That's
a way
great.
also to show that there is another face to Israel. It's not only the one that you see in the news in 1 minute saying, okay, they bombed here, they bombed there. And I think this is important because this is a battle that we can win with culture. That's why, I make movies, I make documentaries. Another guy is a writer, but it's a way of understanding, let's say, the Jewish culture and the situation, also the political situation, in a different fashion.
So you believe much in focusing as Jews on the positive aspects of our being Jewish, focusing on our culture, being proud Jews, not with a victim attitude or a victim mentality, but be, let's say, behave as normal people and show our culture in a proud way. You think that
Normal people. We are first of all human beings. Then we are Jews. If you show that, I was in the city. I was elected in politics, and for 5 years I was in the city council of Milan, and I had to take some decisions also for the Jewish community. But I always put myself as a universal being, and they knew I represented also the Jews. And they even if I wouldn't say, they remember you that you're representing the Jews. But if you put only, I'm a Jew and I have to help my people. No, I have to help the city, first of all. I have to help all citizens of Milan. And then, of course, I represent also this part of the city.
So I promised that we would keep it to a certain length to encourage people to listen to it. So I'm going to ask you, Roger, if you have any last minute thoughts. What you've said, it's fascinating. It's given us lots of food for thought, but anything else you want to add?
No, I have to add that it is important to start to talk to our young people from a very young age. First of all, they have to know their history. This is important. In an age where everything is social and it's with a smartphone, They have to know and they have to be knowledgeable about the history. And to build, you have to build a full culture, as I said before, and you have to do it as a very young age. This is the idea of memory has a sense only if we transmit something. We have to transmit something to the younger generation. This is our Jewish legacy. And we know how to do a golden calf very easily. Golden calf means building memorials and having also a golden calf mentality. I am for the openness and to the transmission of culture. And culture always is fluid and has to go and also has to change because the time are changing, and the young people are going to be the one who is they are going to represent us in the future. So we have absolutely to work with them, and also they have to make an effort.
So if I try to learn a lesson from what you said as an individual listener, wherever I am in the world, I could say Ruggero's Ruggero's perspective is that transferring our culture has a positive influence on our environment, and being a participating citizen wherever we live has a positive effect on us as Jews, and as an individual, I could do the same thing in my own way. Give people information about our culture, and also participate in general activities of citizens, but then as a Jewish citizen, participating in the bigger effort of building a country, building a city, and running it. Is that a correct advice for individual listeners drawn from what you just said?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was born in Antwerp, as I told you, and there they have the Flemish Bloc, which is a very anti-Semitic party. And I know that in certain parts of Europe, anti-Semitism is very eradicated, but still I think that we have to make alliance with the people who really like us, and there are many people who like Jewish culture and Jewish people, and they are the majority. We have to always to remember that.
Thank you, Roger, so much. Really, this has been such an important and informative talk. Thank you to our listeners for joining us. I hope that you will watch Evelyn's Never Again Is Now documentary, which you can find at joinneveragainisnow.com. You can find out more about my nonfiction Holocaust play at thinedgeofthewedge.com. We will put the link on the comments of this podcast so that you can see Roger's documentary Memoria that he talked about. And wherever you can, without getting physical danger to yourself, please speak up against anti-Semitism and hate.